Hey guys, I'm Tim.
I'm Mike.
I'm Spencer.
And I'm Daniel.
And this is the Board Game Rundown. And today we're going to give our first impression review of Mythwind from Open Owl Studios. This game, I guess, technically is 2 to 4 players. Mm-hmm. It says 30 minutes to an hour per season. That is a lie. Anyways, in Mythwind, we are basically these villagers. We go out into this awesome forest and we are starting to encounter sprites and discover the lands around us. So the board here, the town board, is like populated with these forest tiles, which we can clear out by taking actions. We're gonna have to clear it out so we have room for buildings. And yeah, we're just gonna start going around. There's action spaces that start the game, and then as you build the buildings, it's gonna give you more places you can go. Mm-hmm. Just to break down some of the action spaces, there's the adventure tile up here. You can draw an adventure card and you're going to do what it says.
Make a decision.
Make a decision. Usually you get presented with a this or that, but sometimes one of them was just something happened to me. And that's fine too. So that's that one. Then over here down by Dan's hand is the improve town or discover land. So you can improve the town by upping one of those resources. We all have asymmetric costs. So as the farmer, food was only 5 for me to increase, while culture over there, that we kept calling it the vase or the pot, that one costs 15, but it's cheaper. All the prices are different for everybody, right? Excuse me. Then there's the construct or demolish. So if we pay the costs on one of these buildings, it's going to have a spot where it enters the construction queue, and then so we would put it, the jail would go there as long as we've met the prerequisites. So you can go through and pick out the buildings you want. What we were doing is we were pulling out the buildings we had met the prereqs for, so we had an idea of what we could build towards. I felt like that was useful. And then, yeah, and when it pops out, it's going to may give you a reward, and then it will provide you with a new worker resource spot. If you do not have a cleared place to put it, it stays there until you have cleared a space, and then that construction queue thing moves it again. There are things that can move the queue down, and just like they can move it up. So that can also happen. The other thing you can do is you can spend 5 gold and remove one of these forest tiles. We did one, and we got this resource, right? It's like, okay, cool. Boom. Some of them might give you let you hire a worker, things like that. Then there is the hire space, where you can spend 2 to hire either a sprite or a villager to come to your board and to help you work. You can spend 5 and hire 2. You can hire any combination that you want. And they've got a value on there. The value is really just kind of how long they last on your player board. And then the last action you could take is to use a building. So if you had unlocked a building that has a space you can go to, we would do that. That's pretty much the game. Everybody is going to take one on their turn. They're going to take an action. They're going to do it. They block that space for other people, and then basically they can start doing their own character actions on each of their own boards.
And that's where the depth in this game really comes from.
We also have the 2 different factions here, basically, the humans and the sprites. Your actions that you can take depend on which one of these you chose. So this one lets me choose either one, but this one forces me to do a sprite action.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then in the adventure, the card is basically going to tell you what kind of action you ended up taking. So it could be random. This, lots of either or. So this one, your allegiance would be determined because this general store, you spend 3, you take a character action. So the character action you take, whether it is in the sprite side or the villager side, that is going to determine also your action on your board, right? That's how you choose how you've allied. And so when you hire a worker, that's how you know which one you are. Now, if you get one of each, you get to choose which one. Mm-hmm. But yes.
The only thing that I want to add is people tend to ask, while we're still early in the view, before we go in depth, people tend to ask, what am I doing and how do we win? Okay? It's a cooperative game. So what are you doing is literally just your job. If you're the farmer, if you're the market, you're just doing your job and you're trying to, manipulate your job as well as you can to get money, and then you spend that money on improving the town. And how do you win? You don't. This is kind of like a Second Life game, like a RuneScape, like any of those games where you kind of you're playing it to kind of just live in this other world, and you're just working together to build up this town. You will get better at your job as you upgrade your character. The city will get better as you upgrade the city. But at the end of the day, it's almost just like a Civilization sandbox game that you're just kind of working together to constantly improve. There is no, yay, we did it. Yes, you have event cards that you can do. You have goal cards that you can do. You have all these like short-term goals, but there is no like end game. It's just keep improving yourself, keep improving the town, and work towards a better tomorrow. It's a sandbox.
And another thing that's very important is the season, so we're playing a season, and the season's length is basically you go through this deck of weather cards. So you draw a weather card and you're going to resolve it. First, you're going to check and make sure, see if the weather pattern, the 3, counting the current one, match on the season. Something could happen. Each individual player might have a thing that is affected by the weather. We'll get there in a minute. And then also you might have an icon. So like this one is cloudy and it tells us that we need to read an event. So we would draw the top event card off the event deck and resolve it. So that happens every day. So we place we've all placed our workers. Then we're going to come down here. We're going to take all of our actions. We're going to do everything down here. And then there's the dusk phase where basically we reset the board. You might have 1 or 2 things that you do during the dusk phase, depending on which character you're playing. And then when everybody's ready for the next day, we draw a new weather card. And so this would be cloudy 2 times in a row, but this would have the advanced construction queue on it, right? So we would check cloudy, nothing happens. Okay, it's cloudy. Does clouds affect anybody? Yay or nay? Boom. And then we move on. And that's basically how the game goes. Like Dan said, there is one like public goal that you can meet, but you don't lose if you don't get it. It's just, usually it's like if you succeed, something happened, like add this event. If you didn't, maybe you pip down a worker. But yeah. So out of the 2 we did, because we've played through 2 seasons now. We were lucky and we got both. I don't want to say lucky. We worked hard and got both. Actually, Spencer, you need to move that 4 up to a 5 because of the chapel at the end of the season.
Look at that.
Right.
I noticed that earlier.
Hey.
So yeah, we're going to break down what like each of our characters did a little bit, just so you have an idea. They all play completely different, have different levels of complexity, and have their own rule books as well. So yes, you have this big boy rule book, which really like half of it is like references that tell you exactly what the buildings do in case you don't understand the iconography. And there's some pictures and examples and things like that. And then everybody's got their own personal rule book, which then explains what those characters are supposed to do. And they do have like a turn breakdown on the back and icons that are important to your characters. Same thing with the main rule book. It's got all of the town icons and then general icons that you're going to see as you go. Most of them are pretty straightforward. There are definitely questions. I'll just go first with the farmer. It says he was 1 star, so he was the least complex. And that's probably true, but there's a lot going on even with that, right? So the farmer, I have a market up here, which depending on my actions that I take are going to allow me to either plant a crop. I've got this polyomino thing going on down here on my board. So my crops have to be adjacent. I also have these untamed lands that I have to pay to clear out to make more room for crops. I can tend my crops, which will then allow me to flip it from the ungrown side to the grown side, which will also increase its value. Then there's the harvest action. I can harvest one of my crops. So, I pick one of my strawberry tiles, for example, and I sell it for the number shown. Then there is the cattle icon, and the cattle or livestock will let me, I can buy a cow for 3 gold. If I can move a cow. If I have 2 cows next to each other, I can breed them. So which will then give me a cow for free. Or I could sell one. So there's all of those things you can do. And then there's the equipment action. So I could use equipment, and which I never did because the equipment was really expensive to get. And never got to a point far enough in my farm where I needed equipment.
Maybe in later seasons.
Maybe in later seasons. I also have this little thing up here, which in the spring, if a Sunny card gets played or revealed, I get to plant for free. If it rains in the summer, I get to tend as like a free action during the dawn phase. And then in the fall, if it's cloudy, I can harvest as a free action just right then during the dawn phase.
Hey, there's that theme kicking in.
Yeah. So, and then it's very important. Everybody's got skills that they can add if they can pay the cost. Mine is basically having different groupings of crops. And then as an action at the longhouse, instead of gaining a gold, I can gain a skill if I can pay for it. And so I pay those crops. So instead of getting those money for those crops, I get a skill. And this one just gave me, whenever a Sunny card came up, I got to harvest. Again, that's the one I chose because I was able to pay for it. It was a level 1. The higher levels have prerequisites. Looks like if sprites are in play, things like that will affect it. We have not gotten far enough into the game to see that, but I assume it's coming. But I didn't want to spoil stuff for myself by trying to look ahead too far. That's the farmer. Very brief explanation. But Mike, why don't you?
Mike's isn't going to be in camera because of the setup that we have, so we will have pictures overlaid on the screen when he's talking about the different parts of his board.
I picked the merchant because this seemed like fun to me.
And you're in sales.
Yes, I've been in sales for 20 years, ran a business for a little while, so the merchant seemed like a fun asymmetric power to go with. So the merchant is manipulating a market essentially the whole time, and also dealing with a customer and 2 different rival merchants at the same time. My complexity was 4 out of 5. I would agree with that. It was a little bit difficult to get into at first, but I'll get into my impressions later. So when the weather card was flipped, that could affect the market. The season, every season has one of the 4 goods affixed to it. And the type of weather could either increase the value of that good or decrease the value of that good. That weather card could also affect which one of these merchant rows, they call it, would go off. Either the rival merchant would buy or sell goods, or the customer card would buy goods, and he would buy either sometimes the most expensive of that good or the least expensive of that good. So I would have foreknowledge of that, where I could go, okay, he's trying to buy the most expensive tools this round, so let me buy some of those and increase the value of tools so that he buys my tools instead of the rivals. So that's all that would happen just on the weather
Dawn
card.
phase, yeah.
And then whichever one gets resolved, like if the customer goes, he goes back into the bottom of the deck and a new customer comes out for the next round. But that weather may make the rival go instead of the customer next time. I was generating a lot of money because, of course, I'm a merchant and I'm selling goods here. And I was using that a lot of time to affect the town and increase the amount of goods that we could get so that we could get more buildings out onto the board. That felt like my most useful role out into the town.
Yeah, you cleared a lot of land.
Cleared a lot of land because I had a lot of money generating.
And you helped us meet a goal that we needed by helping generate those resources, right?
It also definitely has a thematic feel there that the merchant guy running the banks is the one that has all the money and is destroying all the land and building all the buildings.
Right. That's where
it is there.
Yeah, that thematic tie to my character's role in town did make sense to me. I had enough money to buy dice, but I tend to have more money than the other guys, so I was kind of like, okay, if you want dice, go ahead, let me know. I'll pick something else to do. Once we get into our character actions, so this was... The character actions were pretty awesome. So I can sell goods, of course. Whenever you sell a good, the price goes down. You could stock goods. This allowed you to buy goods from the rival merchants. And what's interesting here is I'm buying it for current market value. Merchant values are set prices. So for example, if this rival merchant has a set value of 4 on fur, but the current value is 3, I would buy it from him so he'd get less money the next time he would sell that good to the customer. So that was one of the strategic things there. I could increase or decrease the value. So that is, they call that the manufacturer. So I could just create a good. I could just manufacture one, which is free. I don't even have to buy it. Or I can just manipulate the value of one of these goods alone, go up or down one. I could also upgrade. To get these upgrade tokens with the merchant, you have to buy out a rival. So you actually determine his net worth. So you look at how much money he has currently in his supply. You take any good he currently has in inventory, you add up its current market value, you double that price, and then you spend all that money to buy out that rival. He goes face down, and then all his money goes away. I spend all my money, but I do gain any goods he has in inventory. So I bought out one rival, and I gave myself an upgrade. And then last but not least, of course, I can buy goods. So that's the easy one. I did buy one upgrade during our game in 2 seasons. And every time these dice come to you, you get to choose those actions. But at the end of the round, I don't know if we mentioned it, the pip value goes down. So if it goes to if I place a 1 and it goes to a 0, well, it's gone next round. It goes back into the town supply. So the upgrade I bought was I could spend 1 coin and prevent the pip from going down. So I never lost my dice. I just kept recycling them.
Well, you could do it with 1, right? It's not all of them, right?
It matches which action you take that round.
Yeah, it depends on how many times he took it.
But what I'm saying is if you took this action, so if you took this action twice, you could do it twice.
I could do it twice per round is what I was saying. So
Yeah.
I kept 2 dice and I kept pipping each one up each round. So I was gaining a little bit of money, but because I kept using this, I was barely gaining money.
You're paying workers. You're
Yes.
paying workers to keep them around. Makes sense.
So that was me. I'm manipulating the market, using money to buy out rivals, and I have to buy out rivals to upgrade my engine here.
I think I'm going to go next because you might have noticed that sounded like we just explained 2 completely different games.
Very different.
Be ready for game number 3.
Yeah. And so Tim's is kind of like, not like simple, but like compared to the amount of explanation Mike had to give, it was a little bit easier. And now I think mine's going to be a little easier than Spencer's to explain. So I figure I might as well go
give
next.
us a break.
Star complexity, Dan.
Well, ours are the same. Ours were 3
Okay.
out of 5, I think it is, right?
Yep.
So I played the Ranger, and the Ranger, think of it like the stereotypical Scout is like really what it was. I think they chose Ranger because it sounds cooler. And basically, the quirk with the Ranger is he spends most his time not in town. So on everyone else's turn, they're basically doing a worker placement thing where they're putting a worker out here and then taking an action and doing their personal one. To me, at the start of the round, I choose if I'm going in town, in which case I will do that, or if I'm going on an expedition, which is what I want to be doing most of the time. When I go on an expedition, I will choose a difficulty right here, and then using that difficulty, I will take a certain amount of cards out of the 3 tiers, and I will just build a little row, which I'll show you really quick. The reason this card is face up is because I used a special ability to turn it face up, which is awesome, and you'll see why in a second. So basically, I will build a little row like this, and I'll assign my guy at the first tier. Yeah, that's in camera. At the first tier of the thing. And then I will have, you'll see also, they give you a little hint on the corner of what might be on here more. There's a little circle there. So I'm saying, oh, I might need traps for this one. I might need traps and tools for this one. Then, depending on how big my little backpack is here, it starts at 4. I upgraded it to 5. I can take that many cards out of my inventory, and I build a little row that I'm just going to not think too hard about right now, and build a little row of that many cards. So I got 5 cards here in a nice little row. This one is technically upside down. Then I go to the first expedition. During the character action phase, when everyone's doing their stuff on their board, I am now on an expedition. The first thing that happens is if it was face down, it would flip, and there's a weather icon right here, and it basically says if the weather is like this, so if it was rainy this round, a certain thing would happen. This one is discarded good, but they're all different. Then this tells you the order of the things you have, the tools and everything you have. If they're in the correct order, you get to do things, basically. So this one says if I have a rifle in the first location, then I can choose to discard that rifle to gain a food. I don't have to discard it, but if I do, I gain a food. If I don't, I gain that, which is a damage. I have to discard a card from my thing. If I have tools in the second location, first of all, just by having it there, this little brown dot is called preparation. That means just because it's in the right spot, I get a free bonus. You prepared. I would get an extra rifle card. When I get that, it comes out of the supply, and it goes to the very end of my thing that I have
Your little
taken
chain.
on this expedition. It's with me. It's in my inventory. The reason why that's interesting is because let's say that I could discard these. I could spend them on something, and I discard these. I spent one on this and this one for something else. Who knows? These all slide down. Now you'll notice now the axe is in the second location. So depending on when I use my goods while I'm on this route, I can manipulate the order of my inventory in order to get things to line up. So let's say, okay, now my axe is in the right position. I would get that rifle for being prepared, and then I could choose to discard the axe, which again would just discard it back to the supply, and all these would slide over, and I would gain a wood. The wood is on the other side of the axe, so since I'm trading an axe for a wood, instead I would just flip it over, and it would go to the end here. Every good, that's what I had this open for because I won't remember them all. Every good has a name, so we have the tools turn into wood, traps turn into fur, rifles into meat, compasses into map, and the backpack into something called progress, which is very rare, but when it comes up, it's huge. So at the end of that, I go through all three. Then I just move my guy to the next one, and I'm done for the round. At the start of the next round, I don't get to choose if I go back to town because I'm already in the middle of an expedition. I will flip the next card and do the same thing. At the end of the round in which I finished an expedition, then my guy goes back to town, and at the start of next round I can choose if I'm starting a new expedition or remaining in town. The only other thing to add there is if I ever run out of cards by discarding them, I am exhausted, the expedition automatically ends, and I lose things. So you don't want that to happen. That is the main thing I'm doing, is going on expeditions, collecting as many goods as I can so that when I come back to town, I can take my actions to get more tools, and then depending on which action I take, so if I take this action, I get an axe. I put a die here, so I get another axe. If I had a skill there, I could activate the skill, and then I can activate these items that are in the same row. So if I activated this tool, I could take these items, which is I could turn in a wood for 2 coin or 2 wood to bump up the production line, right? Because I'm contributing wood to the construction. So that's what all of these are, is actions I take along with the action that is beside them. Other than that, my whole goal is upgrade my backpack to get as many items as I can on my trips, go on trips, bring stuff back, sell them. That's what the ranger does.
Okay. I did the crafter. The crafter actually has a lot going for her. Now, first, you start off with Dawn. She doesn't do anything special with Dawn. She doesn't do anything special
With Don, who's Don?
Oh, no.
You don't want to know.
When you actually get to the character actions, she has 4, and she gets to do all of them at once. Well, in order, but she gets to do all of them every time. The first one is you can either restock or sell your items. So I am trying to, it's kind of like set collecting and bag building. I can either restock by choosing, depending on which good I chose, which also depends on if I chose the fairies or the villagers, sprites or villagers. I get to take one, so I could take this one, put it in my bag, and okay, so I have one more thing that I have access to. Or I could instead sell. And if I have a good in one of these things, this is like my my workshop right here. And it has different levels of refinement. And so if I sell one that's really refined, I get a better thing. So down here, if I sell one, someone gives me a request for something. And it's got requirements. If I'm able to match those requirements, I meet this, I get some gold, usually an action, and then, well, we can go over that part later, but I will have access to this little curio or tool or whatever it is that I've built. Over here, I get a gold, and I get to make another good refine. So I just automatically, I can be like, boom, do like that. Normally, refining is more difficult. This one is I get to put something else I get to pull things out of the bag. This one is I get to sell another item and then trigger what it has as well. And this one lets me upgrade my reputation. It's all like very convoluted, but it works.
It's also very important to notice that the point of this game is you can save everything, so it's just a continual story. So like this stuff is very important not to mess around too much while we're teaching.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Like, man, Spencer got really good in between seasons. Seems weird.
He's a fall guy.
So yes, you have skills as well. So when I take this one, I will do this skill. And they all do different things. You earn the skills over here. They require me to give up these items that I have refined. They go back into the supply, not into my bag, which suddenly now I'm limiting what I can do. That one's easy. We have gather materials. I will go into my bag. I will take 3 items. That's 2. And it would go in this little area here. And then I would have access to these for refining. I knew there was another in there. And that's gather material. That's easy. But refine material is where a lot of it comes in. So you can refine materials either by starting something off. So this is just the inventory. I can go to level 1 for free, pop it over here. But if I wanted to increase a skill or an item, if I want to refine it more beyond that, I have to get that item from my inventory and I have to sacrifice it back to, actually it goes back to my supply, my bag. And then I would be able to increase whatever it is that it has to be the same item to go up. So I'm constantly trying to get a whole bunch of one item so I can bring that up so I can get the right items here. These require you to be different levels of refinement in order to actually meet the requirements. So in this one, I needed to have 2 level 3 curios, 1 level 2 birch, and 1 level 2 window, or whatever it is. So that is most of what is going on, but these requests, they get really neat because you have this reputation here. And once I finish a request, so if I haven't finished this one yet, but these I will have finished, then I can, this last bit here lets me improve my reputation. There are other things that let me do it as well. And that means I get to look at the little number next to whatever it is I made. So if it was hammers, it says 1. So I have to discard 1 of the hammers that I had already completed back into the deck. And then I can go under here and turn the reputation track up 1. And that will make them worth more money when I fulfill an order. And so, yeah, I can suddenly get a big influx of money all at once. But then I'm spending a whole bunch of time restocking everything that I just spent to get that, because when you spend on these things, it all goes back into the supply. Yeah, there's a lot on this one. I also have, no, I just get, the last thing I get to do is fulfill requests.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because this game is so asymmetric that I just now learned what these 3 were doing the whole game.
Same.
Pretty much.
Because we were
Same.
spending both seasons figuring out our own asymmetric, reading our own manuals, not paying any attention to what the other guys were doing. So it was really interesting to see what you guys were doing this whole time we were playing.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea until right now.
Yeah, so just so we put this out there, Open Owl did send us this copy of the game to play. We have played 2 seasons. We're going to give a first impression. We're going to give it a rating and all that stuff like we normally do, with full acknowledgement that we played 2 seasons. We will play this more, and we will be back with another review after we've at least completed a year.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, like playing this and doing everything we've done and everything so far, clearly first impressions, like we've talked about, right? I don't know, like after like 20 games, if I'm gonna be able to be like, this is how strongly I feel about this game.
Yeah.
Right? There's just so much.
There's a lot
here of like the whole point of the game is it just kind of keeps going.
Yeah.
Like, it just keeps changing.
Yeah, well, and I think like the point really will be more like you're going to hear us describe our experiences with it, and then does that sound like an experience you want to have?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, obviously, in our experiences are based on the faction or the job that we picked, and it could completely change depending on the job that we picked too.
Right.
It could.
Like it's a complete. I was playing a totally different game than you guys were.
100%. I will say, having heard them all, I'm glad with what I got. I think I'd enjoy the farmer as well, but I think those are the two that I would stick
Yeah, it's
to.
funny because I think yours sounds the most fun to me.
Spencer's sounds the most fun to me.
I knew it
but
would.
I
It's
love
bag
bag
building.
building. And then the rarity of your goods and everything sounds cool.
But okay, well, let's go around and then just kind of give our first impressions. And let's start with Spencer.
All right. Well, first off, I want to say in the rule book, it says you can improve or refine one good, or it says a good. And if you play it that way, you will get nothing accomplished at all. Because when I looked online in the FAQ, the designer said, no, you can do it to every good, which makes a world of difference.
So you can do each good once.
Well, no, I could continue to do a good
As long as you can
as long
afford
as I
it or
have the
something.
things to afford it. So
Okay.
I'm getting
So not
up
just
ones
every
to do it.
good, you can just do it as
Yeah, I
long
can
as
do
you
as
can
much
pay
as I
for
was
it.
like, yeah, and that
Because even
helps
your
so much.
rewording does not sound would not be as clear
No,
as
that
I
wasn't my
needed it
that
to
was
be.
his
Sure,
rewording.
sure.
Yes, I can continue to do it until I can no longer afford it. That makes a huge difference. Please don't make that mistake. And other than that, that was the only really big hang-up I had on this one. I discovered about halfway through that workers for me were super important. But everyone wants workers because it helps everybody.
And when you start the game, there's 2
Yeah.
available.
But for me,
And only one person can go to that spot.
yeah.
So really in the first round, one person's getting workers max.
So for me, I'm using all these resources and I'm putting them back into the supply, not my bag, which means I'm not able to put any back in for more points, unless at the end my workers start putting things back in the bag. Yeah. So I kind of want to see what this is going to do in later plays where we can all have lots of workers doing stuff. Because I
Well,
have
after-
a tick up thing as well. on one
After
of my
2
powers.
seasons, we had a lot more workers.
Yeah, we basically all, I think you had the least, like just overall, like the span of
Yeah,
the game.
and I probably needed a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, probably.
To effectively
But it felt
play.
like we all could have like 2.
By the end.
Like, yeah, by
By
the
the
end
end.
of the 2 seasons, kind of floating around. So
Yeah, that's about right. But other than that, I enjoyed it. Actually, the manipulation was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, Dan, what's your final thoughts kinda on this thing?
I love what they're trying to do here with a lot of the theming. I think that most of the theme is nailed here. The problem that I'm having with the game is that when I have a cooperative game with asymmetric factions, I want them to intertwine with each other.
This is true, yeah.
The biggest problem I'm having is Spencer's creating goods. He's literally creating backpacks and tools. My character uses backpacks and tools, but they're not the same backpacks
Yeah,
and tools
I
that
can't
he's
give them to him.
creating. He's not getting me anything.
Ne'er shall the two ever meet.
Yeah. Tim is making food. Okay. Do the rest of us like eat
Right.
the food? No.
Food is
He
here.
just sells the food to make us money.
You don't put it in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
town.
and it's not even the same food.
Who are you selling this food to?
Yeah, that's
Hey.
over here. Yeah,
Any
he's
business-
only exporting his food.
None of your
Wait, we had a
business.
farm this whole time? I've been starving.
I don't want anybody to know.
Yeah, the one and the exception that goes into that is that all of us do have, there's 4 main goods in the game, and all of us do have one good that we get for the cheapest, and that is a thematic good.
Yeah.
The guy running all the banks gets gold for the cheapest. Tim gets food for the cheapest. Like, you get luxury goods for the cheapest. That does thematically make sense, but it's still like a tangential tie-in with the goods. It's not really as thematic as I would like it to be. I would really like it if it was like, oh, I want to go on this expedition, but I need tools. Spencer, can you make me tools? That's
Yeah.
the kind of stuff I like in games like this, and it's not here.
Yeah, I was expecting to be making all the stuff that he's selling. He's the merchant.
Right. And so if you take that out of it, what I'm trying to say is if you're someone who wants really interactive cooperative games where you're working towards a goal and you rely on each other, maybe is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just not here.
These are 4 solitaire
it's 4
games.
solitaire games, and every once in a while you kind of go like, hey Mike, can you up the gold this turn? Because I can if you need me to, but it's cheaper if you do.
Or
and
I want
that's-
to go to this location.
Yeah, or I want to go to this location, right?
Yeah, please don't take that.
And so that is really disappointing to me in a game like this. If you take that out and you have people who just like solitaire games, I'm loving what this game is doing. I'm loving the thematic nature of the asymmetric powers and what I'm doing. I love the worker system. You have these dice that are kind of like these two factions. They're not really competing. Like in the events they are sometimes, but it's not like they hate each other or anything in the theme so far, but you just have these workers. And so this one, you just think of it, since it has 3 pips on it, it's 3 workers really is how it works, because every time you use it, it pips down, and so now you have 2 workers left. Like, is kind of how I think of it.
It's like a timer. How long are they going to stick
Yeah.
around? Yeah.
And then depending on the faction you take is which actions you can take. So the sprites are good at getting me compasses and axes, to where the villagers are good at getting me rifles and traps. So that is something I have to think about, right? Then also, what actions over here I'm going to get. There were multiple times that I took villager dice just because I had a surplus of food. Meat, and I wanted to be able to sell it and take these actions. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I need my villager dice so that I can go here, get extra rifles, and then sell my meat. And the way that all ties in there, I think, is just really well done. You're constantly thinking about not only the gameplay of which die am I going to take and everything, but also the theme of I'm hiring these other people and they're out doing stuff for me. Some of the skill upgrades I can get lets me, while I'm on expedition, I can send out my workers to worker placement slots. So it's like I'm sending them back into town and they're doing the worker placement for me while I'm busy on my expedition. A really cool thematic way to get that in there. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting sandbox game. I'm just not sure who it's for. If you got people who love cooperative games, it's kind of a bit too solitaire for them. And then some people like Bob loves civilization games, right? But if you tell Bob there's no end goal, there's no victory you're working towards, it's kind of just like this short-term goal of like, hey, we beat this season, you know? Mm-hmm. I think Bob's gonna shrug. Like, he's just gonna be like, "Oh, okay, I'll just go play a 4X Civ game, and that gives me the sandbox feel, but with I can win kind of thing or something like that." So, not trying to hate on the game. I had fun. I'm totally looking forward to playing again, and I'm looking forward to trying out more factions. That's one of the interesting in the rulebook. Between seasons, it just says try a different faction. It's just like, that sounds complicated.
If you want, you can swap trays with somebody. And now, I'll have thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
go ahead.
No, I was just summing it up, just saying I'm not trying to, belittle or anything. I had a lot of fun. I'm just, it's in this weird limbo territory for me where I'm just like, man, it does a lot of stuff right, but I'm not sure it does the stuff that matters to me right. And so I'm just in this weird limbo middle where I'm just like, yeah, it was fun. I'll play it again. I'm not sure it hit the mark for me.
I see where you're coming from, because the really good asymmetric games out there, like let's talk about Root, different factions, some counteract each other. Others work together better than others. In Hegemony, the different classes work off of each other.
I mean, they have to.
They have to,
literally,
right.
you have to have
And
that cycle that feeds.
Nothing my mini game was doing had any impact on what you guys were doing whatsoever until we got to the town phase, where I'd go, all right, guys, where should I spend my money?
Yeah, and the difference there is that those are all competitive games, and this is a cooperative one.
True.
So then you try to look at other cooperative games that does this, like a Merchant's Cove, that is right up there. I'm trying to think, like Endangered is an asymmetric
Spirit Island.
cooperative. Yeah, that's true. It's asymmetric. It has a completely different feel, but it's getting to the point that I'm trying to make. Then you have those games, and a lot of them do tend to lead more solitaire. Merchant's Cove is a different beast altogether. That thing, everything.
Yeah, but even like Black Orchestra or Ghost Stories, I mean, where everybody goes is so important, and what you do is so important, and it's really important that you coordinate. Here, it's like, well, don't spend those resources or we won't hit our goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's really
I'll
the
do something
only
else then.
table talk,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's lacking that banner that a lot of co-ops have, because we are kind of working sort of multiplayer solitaire with our character.
And it's almost like they did that on purpose, and that's why all your character action stuff are simultaneous. And it's because by the time you're done with your character action, now it's time for me to place my worker again, do weather and everything, right? It's time to start the round again. I didn't have any time to talk to you guys, about what's going on. I
Oh,
was
I had-
working on this
I
engine.
had plenty of
Oh
time.
yeah, okay.
I had plenty of
Sorry,
time.
I don't know the life of but a humble farmer.
Yeah.
What'd you plant, Tim?
Yeah, Mike, give us your thoughts there, sir?
So yeah, I like the game that the merchant is playing. That's why I picked this faction. I personally really enjoy variable markets and games, and if you do, this is a fun puzzle to manipulate on your turn. Now we haven't talked about it, so let's just get it out there. The components to this game are fantastic.
I love the art.
The art is awesome. I love how these cards easily pop out because the edges are indented.
And
The
they do that everywhere.
The art
And they match
between
so
the
well.
board and the cards match perfectly. These minis are really nice.
Yeah, I did prime 'em, but
I
yes.
love how
you
that
did?
same
Nice.
option is on your player board, so my goods easily pop out. It's very easy to save everything. It shows you in the back of your manual how to save your progress. All the stuff my merchant owns is just going to go into this section here, and everything that's in the market is going to go over here. Really easy to save. So just wanted to get that out there. The art and the components I really impressed with. I like this gameplay, but yeah, this I felt could be a little bit more compelling. And like you said, I wish that there was more interaction into what we were all doing. Now, this guide is pretty good. Mine was 47 pages. How many pages were yours? I'm just curious.
It's a quiz.
39.
Okay.
27.
35.
Which is interesting because his was the lowest complexity, but it had more rules than yours does.
It's got a lot of examples.
So I think for the most part, these are really good. Like obviously Tim learned the base game and then handed these out. And before we could even start, we had to learn these to get started. So getting going was a bit slow. I think that's why Tim said that 30 to 60 minutes is a bit of a lie. Even after you've learned all of the factions and you just set it up and then you time how long it takes to get through a season at 4 players, 60 minutes sounds like a bit of a stretch.
Maybe. I think the second one took us around that. But
Pretty close. So yeah,
Yeah,
2 players. I could see 30 minutes with experienced players.
Yeah, I could see it getting a lot faster.
Now, that said, there's things that could really be improved with this manual. Like they could take this up a whole nother level if they had page references, because I've got Dawn, determine the weather, check the season effect, resolve the weather effect, shift the market, resolve marketplace action. Those are the 5 steps I have to take on Dawn. All right, shifting the market, that's on this little thing here. So this actually tells me if it's sunny, that seasonal good goes up in price. If it is rainy, that seasonal good goes down in price. If it's cloudy, there's no change in the market. However, the weather card has another icon. It was either a building or a book.
Yep.
Yes.
I couldn't remember. Does that mean I resolve if it's cloudy, nothing happens. If it's the building,
yeah, it's the
I think
building
the
upgrade
rival
thing.
goes, but I couldn't remember. If it's the book, I think the customer takes a turn, but I couldn't remember. And that's not explained here. And there's room to put it here. So, like, really, there's plenty of room to just add if it is cloudy.
Yeah, just cloudy,
Nothing happens.
Yeah, it's like
nothing.
Like it would be book for event equals customer icon.
So
right?
instead, you know what I kept doing every time? And I'll do this live on camera. It's on page 19. If the weather card has the building, the customer performs an action. You really could sneak that on the back of this or on this thing. So I don't have to go to page 19 anymore.
Every time.
And I tried to just keep page 19 open like that so that I could just look at the back and go, oh, okay, beginning of the season, boom. Base card, the customer's going to go. But then I do my customer. But then when I have to get to my character actions here, so page references, that's a little bit further down. That's during the day phase. Day phase is on, that's on page 30. Okay, so when you have a 47 page player reference, page references on the back here would have been so huge, so I didn't feel like I had to flip through this thing on every turn of the game. That's what I was doing. So the ease of entry was a bit rough because I was flipping through this on every turn. That said,
I very much agree with just the basic point of if your player rates. Listen, I love player rates, and I even love when you have thick player books like this because this shows me there's some depth to this game, and I love it. But when you have a 40-page player raid, I think that page references are a must.
Index in the back, really.
Yeah.
and it's got like the icons of like what those actions do. But some of these actions, I get like 3 or 4 choices, and so again, I got to go into the book to find that action. So again, page reference for the action would have been nice, because when there's 3 or 4 to choose from with just that action, it's not just I have 5 actions to choose. I have 5 actions, and some of those have sub actions, which again, player reference. So that is a big nitpick, and I really went into detail on that, but I just wanted to explain why page references make such a big difference, because there's 5 steps of the dawn phase, there's 3 steps of the daytime phase, and there's 2 steps of the dusk phase, and that's just my character.
Right.
You guys had sometimes 5 steps on the dusk phase.
I have 2 different day phases depending on where I am.
Right. So you can see why, even when I switch characters, I'm going to be flipping back through this book to figure out what to do on every phase. And that's a little frustrating for me because I prefer ease of entry. It wasn't that easy to ease into this.
You should have been the farmer.
But I wanted the challenge. I was looking forward to this game. I still enjoyed it, and I like the puzzle that the merchant gives me. I just want to get into that play faster, and flipping through the book every time made that more difficult.
I mean, I had more than 1 hour in order to learn it, right? But it was easier for me to learn hegemony than this game. And I think that that's a problem. Hegemony is a
much heavier
socio-political, based on real life market manipulation game with 4 asymmetric competitive players. And the fact that it was easier for me to learn that than a 4-player cooperative let's go have fun in the town game is a bit of a problem. Again, I don't think this was terrible, but it was too hard for what you guys are trying to do.
Right. Okay. So you're good? You done?
All set.
Okay. So yeah, there's things that I absolutely love about this game, and there's things that I hate. So my character, complexity 1. Okay. Which, yes and no. Because I mentioned when I was describing like what we do, I never use the equipment because I was never generating enough money to get stuff out. So the complexity is 1 as in, oh, my dusk phase, I do 1 thing. I check the weather. Maybe I get to do a free thing. Then on the town phase, like everybody else, I'm going to do a thing, and I'm going to pick 1 of my actions. None of them are overtly complex. I'm planting, so I'm placing a polyomino. I might be clearing. I might be flipping 1 over because I've tended to it. I might be doing stuff with cattle, or I bought or sold equipment. Great. And I'm going to put it somewhere in here. Complexity level 1. But the planning ahead, so this equipment is only good if it's next to this crop, and then it's only going to really be like effective if I do it at this time, and setting up all of these dominoes to then get them to fire off, way more complex.
Yep.
Way more complex than complexity 1, right? That's because I, again, never even touched the equipment because specifically the timing, and this is just the nature of the game, especially in the first season for the farmer, is that I went on an adventure. It cost me money, which was fine, but then I literally lost almost half of my money turn 1. So then I was very limited on everything else. And also that affected that I could only do these bottom 3 actions, which did not help me with the farming because I needed to get the crops out. I needed more of those sprite actions early on and not the villager actions. And I did not have access to those because of random adventure card and
just other players
other players needing things. And I was fine with other players needing things because we're feeling it out. We did achieve our goal. The other problem is dawn phase. Okay, I check the weather, I do this. Now I wait because some people have very complex dawn phases, right? Mike had a very complex
Which
dog
one of
phase.
these three activate? Who's buying stuff?
And I don't know where it is and how do I do it again. And that's not your fault. I mean, that is the book did not lay out a convenient way for you to, which you covered, right? So downtime, then action, boom. I can do my thing. I can place my stuff. Downtime. Everybody, like Spencer has 47 different actions to do during the day phase.
Yeah, I have nothing on dawn, so I'm just like, okay, I'm done. And then I'm waiting and
So
waiting.
Dan and I were like, day phase, okay, we're good.
Yeah, I kept joking about it because while I'm on an expedition, my turn takes 5 seconds. I flip it over, I see what all my cards are in the order, am I discarding those? Yep, and then I just lean back while everyone else is starting.
And then the dusk phase, was the dusk phase pretty straightforward for everybody?
Get my stuff.
Yeah, super easy
Okay,
for me.
yeah, mine was I literally, if I had bought any crops, I slide them over and I fill one out. I don't love this icon here. This is the free one. Okay, so if I buy further down the line, but this also tells me that maybe at the dusk phase that this one falls off, goes back
I
in the
thought
bag.
it was a down arrow. Yeah, I
Right?
don't know
Like
what
it would
is.
go away.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's just the free one. It
Okay.
does not, at least in the book and in the FAQ, which had nothing for the farmer specifically, there's nothing that says that this guy goes back into the bag, everything slides over. It just says slide everything over to the right and then fill in the empty spots. Okay? So if that's the worst thing I dealt with as far as confusing iconography compared to Mike's struggles, I was very fortunate. I'm not picking on you. I'm just pointing out like the rule book.
Simple farmer.
Very much the way the rule books work. So my downtime was crazy long all the time. I hate that.
All the time.
It took us 5 hours to play 2 seasons in a game that takes 30 to 60 minutes. Even our second season still took like a solid hour, and everybody, by then, I really, at that point, like with as hard a time as you were having, and then everybody kind of going, oh, that's how that works, like halfway through the season, I get it, and that's the nature of these kind of games. I was like, we really need to do a second season.
Yeah.
So that, because
We did
logically-
start by reading, though.
we did.
Like that was
Like the
part of
first
that
hour.
time you're quoting was we're each reading our manual.
Yeah, for sure. But it took a long time. It took a long time. So even if we took that first hour, then it's still 4 hours to play 2 seasons.
Yep.
And that first season was probably 3 of those
Yep.
hours. You know, easy.
It was.
3.5 of those hours.
It was.
Which is way too long for the first entry
Yeah,
into
the
it.
tutorial.
I get the more complex the game gets, you know, as you start getting more events and different things are going to happen. Like there are things referenced that we have not seen yet, right? If sprites are in play, we do not know what that means yet, right? So that tells me the game should get more complicated and longer. The first game should be a half an hour. You know, with the tutorials. The tutorials are usually, we play a lot of these kind of games, a joke. You do the tutorial, yeah, we're going to skip the tutorial because we've all played games before, right?
Right.
The tutorial was 3.5 hours. It was too long. The components are amazing. I love the adventure deck until we ran out of adventure cards, and it was
Very quickly.
just the same card until we triggered the event, which you can't do anything about until you just play long enough that all the events go, and then you can get more adventure cards. That was very limiting and kind of disappointing because there's a big old stack of them in the game box.
Basically, there are adventure cards that add event cards, and then there are event cards that add adventure cards. So they kind of feed each other. So until you pull the one that you need, you get in this weird, uneven thing where you only have one adventure card for 2 seasons.
And sometimes the adventure is like a nice throwaway space. I don't have anything to do. I'm just going to go to the adventure and let's see what happens, right? Because the adventure cards were very cool when they were cool. When it was just that one over and over again.
Especially because that one makes you pay money.
Yeah.
It forces you to pay money.
Against your will.
I don't have money.
And that was the other thing is because I immediately was behind the 8 ball financially early on and then shoehorned into the villager actions, I was not really able to effectively farm a ton. By the second season, I was able to set myself up more. We had way more sprite workers, so it was easier to get them. We had a couple spaces that were specifically sprite actions so that I was able to take. So I was able to then start being able to do more of the actions I needed to do to really sort of get an engine going. But I still had many throwaway turns where that's like, well, I'm going to do this. and I get livestock. And I'm just going to sit here because I don't have any workers that I've hired that I assign that would give me extra actions. So I'm just going to spend my 3 gold and get a livestock. Or if I've already got 2 livestock right next to each other, breed 1 for free, which is just finding the little cow token and placing it next to the other 2 cow tokens.
Pass turn.
While everybody else is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, which at least if I had had things to occupy my time, might have felt a little more satisfying. All that being said, I still want to play another season.
Yeah.
I want to see another.
I want to finish a year.
I want to finish a year at the very least. I think the event cards are all really interesting. Whenever we drew a weather card and it didn't have something on it, I was like, oh, yeah. Because.
Really, Mike was like,
Yeah, no doubt. What page? I spent so much time listening to Mike cuss at his rule book.
I was sitting here in the middle, so I actually could understand what everybody was doing.
right.
A little bit, and so like this game is really, I'm very mixed about it because of all of these things. Because honestly, the description of the game sounds amazing, but to Dan's point, who is this for? People that like very complex co-ops, right?
That are solitaire.
That are solitaire. Depending on where you're playing, the co-op is not going to be complex enough for you, maybe, right? Like the farmer really needs to be somebody that really loves engine building and planning like 7 turns ahead. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I really want to play it.
I do too. I love polyomino puzzles.
Me too.
So some of that is pretty interesting. But again, there's no player interaction other than I block the spot. You can't go there.
Yeah.
It's co-op. No player interaction.
Which one do you want? I won't go there.
The decisions are not so far. Like there hasn't been an event that has come up where we all need to agree A or B. The adventure, you're just on it, and it's like, hey guys, should I go up the path or do I go down the path?
The only thing that can matter with that, like Spencer said it once, was we read the options and Spencer said, we don't have enough sprite dice out, and option A sounds like it's going to give us a sprite die. Like that's the extent of the decision making that went into there was like, hopefully it gives us a sprite die.
And even then we're guessing.
Right.
Yep.
And then the other, so the thing is like this game, it looks wonderful, right? And very welcoming but like I would not bring this game to play with my wife or my in-laws
night.
who would look at like an Everdell style, artwork and, like, oh, this looks very fun. And normally those kind of those gamers don't want the conflict, like, oh, I can just I can do my own thing over here, but it's going to be way too complex for them. I feel like that they are, there's going to be just a lot of questions in the rule books. I don't think give you enough direction. Another thing that would have really pissed me off, and I figured it out early, was like, oh, I can clear some land. I guess I can do that. I can spend 4 and clear this untamed wild out. Awesome. Now I'm going to have more room to farm, because when you farm, if you have strawberries out, you need to farm. You put your next your strawberries connecting, so you have a field. They just have to be adjacent, and then cool, awesome. So if I'd have done this, and stuff, and maybe I cleared out 2 of them. Because I didn't have a ton of money, so I'm trying to be frugal, but okay, makes sense. Clear some of these out. The end of the season, I roll a fairy die, and for each, or a sprite die, and for each sprite that shows up, one of those untamed wilds comes back onto my board. I had so little money that I could have cleared out 1. And if I would have cleared out 1 at the end of the first season, and that sucker came back, I might have thrown this tray across the table. And it doesn't tell you that early on. It only tells you that at the end of the season. It should tell you,
be careful
in here.
But that is
this
season,
could
not turn.
come back.
Right.
Yeah, no, at the end of the whole season. But again, it was going to be like one of my last actions of the season,
Right.
Spencer.
That's also the page reference things. Spoiler alert, page references can reference the future as well, not just the past, right? But like while explaining that action, it could say like, there are consequences to this, see page, 37,
See, I actually had quite a few page references in mine.
I just wanted it on the back.
You lucky
the
boy.
back. We do have to score this thing eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
get
get
to it,
The
we'll get
one
to it.
thing that the last thing I want to add, because you brought it up, Tim, and I was thinking it, and then once you said it, I was like, okay, there's something here. The difficulty does not, I would ignore it. I do not understand the difficulty here. The difficulty seems to be learning difficulty and not actually playing difficulty.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like Tim's was the easiest to learn, and mine was really easy to learn. I had a 3-star out of 5 compared to your 1, but mine was just as easy to learn as Tim's, if not easier to me. Like, what I'm doing is super easy. But how do I take advantage of what I'm doing? I still don't know. After 2 seasons, I'm just like bringing home goods and being like, is this good enough, guys? I got some fur and meat. Is this what you guys wanted? I still don't know how to, like, future-proof my goals. And like you're doing all this stuff. Your actions are super easy, but like, how do you take advantage of all the farms?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mike's took an hour to freaking learn. It was so complicated, but then Mike's turn is just, I'll raise the price this good and sell gold. Like, that's all Mike's actually doing is super easy.
Make money, make money, money.
Just watching Mike go, like, I'm like, oh, well, I don't have enough gold to do this. I don't have enough gold to do that. I don't have enough gold to do this. I guess I'll go on an adventure. And Mike's like, okay, I've got this many golds. Is that a lot?
How many should I buy?
Literally, Mike
Can you
has
just give some to
It
him?
looks like Mike has 12 gold right now. Last turn, I'm pretty sure he spent his last 3. Last turn, I saw him spend 3 to do this, either 1 or 2 turns ago, and I'm like, how does he have 12?
Then I had 2 dice, so I sold my highest price goods, naturally.
I ended with 2 gold.
This one starts making an engine too. I had 24 gold, and I got most of that in the last round.
Sure. So all I was saying with that was, I think maybe ignore the difficulty, and if you want to look at the difficulty, look at that as how complicated it might be to learn that one, not necessarily how difficult it is going to be to successfully play that
I think
one.
I'm with
that's gonna
you
be different.
because of the number of steps and then having to read through the steps and find the steps each
Yeah,
time.
it's just annoying because you're like, God, how do I do it? Okay, I got it. Okay, I think I finally got it, and that is my action. That's all I do as the market player. And it's just like, why did it take you 30 minutes to read that? You know,
Yeah,
so
and there
there's
were times
something going on
where
there.
it's like, what did you do last time? I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just resolving the marketplace action, 3 different things can happen, and it depends which card comes up.
The one other thing I wish you could do. So there is you are at the luck of the draw when it comes to advancing the build queue. There kind of should be a way to manipulate that a little bit. Maybe there is
maybe
something
there's
to
later,
come.
but
I can.
he can do it,
It's
yeah.
not easy, but I
Okay.
can.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Fair.
wish that I could. You could affect the board and other people. I had absolutely nothing I could do to affect anybody else.
I do nothing to the board.
I just didn't see the buildings as impactful as I thought they could be. They were very situational.
They're
but-
very expensive. They
Yeah.
felt very expensive, and they didn't feel like they gave enough of a benefit early on to me.
Which
Personally.
again makes sense if you're looking at this from a civilization game where it's like, okay, you built the first trading post, it's garbage. Then you need to upgrade the trading post to this because it gets better. That all makes sense, but we just, while learning our abilities and while having so little we can do, like you're saying, being almost in tutorial mode, it did feel like we weren't able to impact things as in a way that would feel fulfilling.
Yeah, it might change.
Yeah,
It might change.
I'm sure it will.
And again, while I was not like always having the most fun ever, I still am compelled to play and see more of this world.
Well, then what would you rate it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dan, what do we do when we rate games?
Hey guys, we're just going to give this game a 1 out of 10. Obviously, this time it's kind of a first impressions, grain of salt, whatever you want to do. But we're going to personally rate this off of our first 2 seasons out of 10. And then at the end, we're going to average them all together so the Board Game Rundown can give this game a rating.
Sweet. Spencer.
I'm just going to make it short and sweet. I'm going to give this one an 8.
That's high.
That's very high. I'm glad.
Once I figured out
I ain't mad
the
at
thing,
you.
it was pretty
No,
good.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan.
6. It's a fun game. It's good. It needs some tweaking, and I need to get deeper into the weeds on the progression.
Mike. Money.
7. It's one I'd recommend. I may not need it in my collection, but I want to play it more. I want to see a whole season. And if I still enjoy it after a whole season, I could see myself wanting to play. I already want to play the other factions. So
Oh, sure.
I at least want to play a couple more. You got me a little leery about wanting to farm over here, but I love
Hey.
polyomino puzzles.
Yeah, but you might like-
watching other people do stuff isn't that fun.
I
either.
would
might like
never
the-
play yours.
the
I
planning.
would never do it.
You might like the planning.
Some people do not like this stuff, and I do. So I wanted to start with the hardest one, and then the rest will seem easy later, maybe. But I was between 7 and 7.5. This was frustrating at first. I think it brought it down to 0.5 for me.
I'm a 6 as well. I think that there's definitely room to grow. This would almost be a 5 if I weren't so compelled to come back to this and play more and see more of this world. Because again, the adventures, we literally, one of the last things we did was load this adventure deck back up, and I'm like, gosh dang it. Like, oh, that's like so far one of my favorite parts, the adventures and the events. I think they're really interesting. I'm really hoping that there is something that's going to happen with this game in the next 2 seasons that really just allow this thing to shine, which then it's almost like you need quick start rules.
Yeah.
You know, or a different kind of tutorial. But anyways, it's a 6 for me.
So if you add up all of our scores and average them together, you get a 6.8.
All right. Again, first impressions.
Yep.
And we did individually at different times struggle with wording. We were looking stuff up on BGG. We were referencing FAQs and stuff like that. So
Also, we all came into this game completely blind. It's not like we've been researching it for a month on
Not
how
at
to
all.
play
None of
or
us
anything.
studied ahead of time
Yeah.
except
it was
for
like
Tim.
it was, hey, let's throw people in this blind and see if we can figure it out. And usually we can, and we struggled a bit.
But a lot of times that's how learning games go. One person is prepared and the rest come in blind. So that's what we did.
That is the thing with board games, right? I mean, if you're going to bring a board game out, you're going to sit down at the table, play it. You should be able to learn it out of the book.
Now, I'm curious. There is a QR code in mine.
Yeah, it
Probably
gives-
on all
takes you to
yours.
a learn to play.
Might make it easier for you.
Sure.
Yeah, if you want to watch
Exactly,
a
that's what
40-minute
I'm saying.
video,
It was 45-minute video. Yeah.
and
a video might have helped. It would have helped.
Yeah,
Brian.
and I usually, that's how I like learning a game. I almost never will sit down and learn a game out of the book. I will watch a 40-minute video. I'm 100% okay with that. I'll even listen to it while I'm doing
I
something else.
just need the video I watched. I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
not like the person doing
Sure,
the video.
100%. And also,
yes.
like I said, it's good to go into a game blind every once in a while. Be like, can I learn this out of the book? Like, that helps with game design. You know, people need to hear these things. This companies, like, I'm not trying to speak ill of this company at all, right? But let's just say in a hypothetical world, this company had 3 rulebooks come out in a row that all needed work. People need to bring that up to them so that they can work on that as a company.
Well, I mean, even Stonemaier Games, right? Famously cranks
Famously,
out errata.
every single
stuff.
game that comes out has an errata that comes out the next month. You know, and so you just need to talk about these things out in the open, and it's not an insulting thing; it's
No.
a learning experience.
No, and yeah. And my issues with the game weren't really the rule book, but also my rules were not near as complex
Sure.
as others. Now the gameplay, completely different animal. But anyways, so this is what we thought after our first experience with Mythwind. There's a lot here. It's a long video. This was a long game. We spent all day playing it, literally. Yeah, so please let us know if you've played it. What do you think? Let us know, you know, do you like first impression videos? You know, is this something that's interesting to you? Also, we do have a Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider contributing. But if that's not your bag, you don't have to do that. You can just like the video, share it with your friends, leave a comment, join our Discord, hang out with Mike and I on our Wednesday night live streams. All those things we really do appreciate. And there are awesome ways that you can support the show.
Yeah, and depending on the weather, the price of our Patreon may go up or down.
Oh, boy.
Just kidding.
Oh, boy.
But hold on, first we have to turn to page 19 to figure out if.
How did you know it was 19? Because it's not referenced. You just eventually found that it was page 19.
We kid.
Yeah. Anyways, so for the board game rundown, I've been Tim and I'm a farmer.
I'm Mike, and I was a merchant.
I'm Spencer, and I'm the crafter.
I'm Dan the Ranger.
He's a ranger. He's not the ranger.
Well, in this town.
Thanks for watching.
And you can say the title's only 3 words.